everyone, and thank you for attending this meeting of the Dingwall and Seaforth Area Committee. We'll just launch straight in it. Are there any apologies for absence?
We have apologies for absence, Chair, from Councillor Patterson, and confirm that's the recording started.
And Mr. Rogers.
Yes.
Are there any declarations of interest, members?
I think I'll declare one on the Petrie application because it mentions that councillors had previously supported it, and I know I wrote a letter of support when asked. So, but it wasn't for the council's application; it was for funding from the Scottish Government. But given that I've already got a positive view on it, perhaps I should declare.
I think we all supported at one stage or another, but yeah, but if you're comfortable with that, let's do that then.
Can I confirm that's a declaration of interest or a
declaration? What's commonly one?
Transparency. Well, transparency statement. You can stay in the room, but a declaration of interest you'd have to leave the room. Is that right? Yeah.
I think I'll leave because I also know would that be important? Well, I won't leave then.
So it's a transparent
session.
Yeah, not say anything. Okay, delighted to welcome Inspector Ross this morning, and we move on to the area performance summary. Over to you, Richard.
Good morning. As soon as we ask a copy of the report, my intention would be to just run over and give the highlights and then take any questions after if that's acceptable to the chair.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so obviously the report starts with the introduction from the area commander, Scott MacDonald, who summarised the previous period. So obviously in terms of challenges we face, we've come through COVID. Can't say that the challenges of that are fully gone from us. And then we've had the cost of living challenges, which are having an effect on communities and the families within the community. And obviously we're working with partners to try and mitigate some of that issues and to protect people. It then moves on to mention our presence on Highland roads, enforcing road traffic legislation, improving safety and investigating collisions. This year was, or previous year was busy for tourists, again, particularly around the NC 500 route. And throughout the period we continued to work with a visitor management plan, the visitor management group, which is a multi-agency group, trying to look at the various issues that are caused by the increased numbers. I'll come on to specific statistics in a minute, but in terms of crimes of violence, there's also an anticipated rise in the number of assaults when COVID restrictions lifted. That did happen during the last reporting period, but what we will note is there's been it has been an increase in common assaults, serious assaults, and assaults on emergency workers during this period. So that is continuing. We've seen a reduction in frauds compared to the last year. Still seeing a lot of frauds, a lot of online frauds, etc. And our work has been focused around preventative messaging in terms of that. I'll come on to mention missing people, but you'll see from the report the numbers have increased, particularly around children. Come to our local policing priorities, they remain as road safety and road crime, anti-social behaviour, violence and disorder, inclusive crime, protecting vulnerable people, serious and organised crime, and terrorism and public order. The page 4 of the report gives Dingwall and Seaforth at a glance, and I'll go over a few of the statistics here. So, overall, road crime offences have increased against the 5-year and the last year to date figures. In terms of proactive policing, mobile phone offences have increased against both, as have failure to insure against third-party risks of no insurance offences. That's proactive detection by officers on patrol. In terms of antisocial behaviour, disorder and violence, overall antisocial behaviour has increased on the 5-year and also the last year to date. bit of anticipated a rise, because obviously last year we were still in some form of restrictions. So I would have anticipated a rise. Common assaults increased by one more crime in the last year to date, and serious assaults have increased by 2 more crimes. As well as the percentage looks quite big, the actual number of incidents is quite small because the numbers in the area were small to begin with. In terms of positive crime, there's been a big reduction in the number of overall positive crime, 21%, which equates to 25 fewer crimes, and housebreaking having dropped significantly on the 5-year average, and stayed the same against last year's. Say for fraud, I've already mentioned that it's has decreased, but it's not. That's all we're complacent, because frauds are an ongoing problem, particularly the online and the sort of telephone type frauds. In terms of protecting vulnerable people, overall sexual crime has decreased by both the 5-year and the last year to date figures, as domestic related offences have decreased, and so for hate crime, there's an increase against the 5-year average, but a decrease compared to last year with one fewer crime. In terms of serious and organised crime, there has been a reduction in terms of supply offences, both in the 5 and the last year to date statistic. There's also a section there from the counter-terrorism officer. I'm not going to dive, it's in the report to be read. Going over into the sort of the more detailed info, in terms of road safety and road crime, thankfully no fatalities during the reporting period. What you will know is there has been a reduction in drink and drug driving offences. It's down at 7 compared to last year. But like that needs to be looked at the context of, we still had 29 detections. So that's still disappointing to see there's still that level of people taking that risk, although obviously there has been detections. Speeding offences have increased over the last year, so again, proactive approach to that. In terms of our overall strategy for road safety, our Operation Cedar, which is to challenge, educate, detect and reduce, continues. That's led by the road policing unit. In terms of the education side of that continues. For antisocial behaviour, violence and drugs, I've obviously talked about the assault figures have increased. In terms of drug possession offences, they have increased as well. Again, that's down to proactive policing detecting that offences. There's a section in there about harm prevention officer. I've previously mentioned this role at previous committee meetings. Just a way of an update, that is due for review shortly, with the hope to continue the funding and continue the work that's been carried out. And the officer is based in our headquarters, but does cover into this area and does some work in this area. In terms of positive crime, I've talked about the overall figures of breaking and fraud. Shoplifting has also decreased by 10, and motor vehicle crime reduced significantly from 6 to 1 in the last year to date. Again, this is an area for positive crime that we do a lot of work. The banking protocol continues. We work with our financial institutes who are very proactive in identifying people who they believe are lifetime being the victim of frauds and reporting that. That's working really well, and we continue engaging with them to just reinforce that message. Talked about frauds. Frauds of various types continue to be an issue, and we try and put message out as much as we can, but it is unfortunately the methods used by criminals change. There's a continual process of trying to keep that information correct. In terms of protecting vulnerable people, I've talked about the figures for domestic and hate crimes. Good talk about missing people. So you see, what I would say is the numbers given to you in here are not specific to Dingwall and Seaforth. They are for any division. They can't be broken down to individual areas. But what I would say is we have seen the trend of an increase as well, particularly in terms of looked after children going missing from children's home. What we do now have is an allocated liaison officer for each of the residential establishments. What we're trying to do is work with both staff and also the residents to try and identify the reasons for going missing and see if we can reduce the number of incidents, or if they go missing, to try and encourage them to maintain contact with the staff or ourselves, which allows us to make sure they're safe for one, and try to get them returned as soon as possible. So that work is ongoing, but for the figures, there has been an increase in that is replicated in our area. So in terms of serious and organised crime, talked about the drug supply offences have reduced, although possession offences have increased. Proactive work, we've got, there's a section in the report about county lines. As an area, we continue to be vulnerable to county lines activity. It's an ongoing process to deal with this. We do as recently as a division, we've expanded our team of dedicated officers. Our organised crime team is based out of Inverness, but does work into this area and has recently done work in our area. So we expanded the number of officers who are dedicated to targeting that. And I say they do based in Inverness area, they do cover into our area as well. For counter-terrorism, we don't tend to report on figures for that, but there is a section from the contest liaison officer with information regarding that. In terms of the crime statistics, they're there to see. I think I've covered the kind of main points. I would basically open up for any questions that you'd wish to ask.
Right, thanks very much, Richard. It's fully comprehensive report as usual. Any questions, member?
You talked about children's homes.
Yes.
And from memory, the protocol that staff have is there's a certain time that the residents are back, they have to contact the police, but often perhaps the young person isn't missing, they just haven't called to let them know. Have you looked at the protocol, and is that what we're touching on there?
Yeah, so there is the protocol in terms of when somebody is a missing person, or whether they're just late as kids will be on occasions. What I would say is there's also an element of they have to assess the risk, and for them, if the risk meets a certain criteria, they will report it to the police. And at the moment, I've been looking at the protocol and the work from the homes in our area. I have no concerns in terms of what's been reported to us. I think it's what's been reported is quite rightly being reported.
So I know it takes a lot.
It does take up a lot of time, yeah. But we then obviously we assess the risk ourselves, and that determines the resource level and the action that's taken. And yes, a lot return, but we have to, they return very quickly, but that's just the nature of the incidents. But I say it's based on what's reported, is based on risk from them, and how it's responded is based on risk from us.
John?
Don't think so, no.
No.
I've got some questions.
Yes.
I do want. Would you say that we've had a few of the community council representatives saying that they're not seeing much of police rounding about, but given your report, there are times when you're tied up in missing persons, which they won't see because you've got to send 2 officers. Is that right?
It depends on the circumstance. Yeah.
And do you deal with a lot of elderly people that disappear? Maybe they've got dementia, or how is that broken?
I can't give you the exact numbers, but I can find them out for you. But in terms of adult missing persons, they're the minority. Looked after children is probably looked after children or adults who are not, like say, like dementia or you do get adults go missing. We do have a significant number of them who go missing for various reasons. In terms of elderly folk with health conditions causing them to missing, that's thankfully quite rare. But when they do happen, they're also very resource intensive because obviously the risks immediately very high. So we don't get a lot of them, but when we do, they are an absolute priority.
And recently I've seen some of the traffic police out stopping people, which is good.
Yep.
And I think over Christmas and New Year, there's always kind of different events happening, like initiatives that
Yep.
police do to try and highlight that. Is there anything coming up soon? Or, and you said that even 27 is quite high for being stopped, and is there, say, more people being found under the influence of drugs rather than alcohol now? Because I know that we're seeing an increase in drugs throughout the area. The county lines, I went to a briefing on that nevertheless. I hadn't been invited. But I did say to them, the county lines doesn't stop at the Kingsford Bridge.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned that in your report. And it was a very interesting briefing and what you should look out for.
Absolutely.
But speaking to young people, they already know what to look out for. And I wonder now that schools are getting back to normal, is there more interaction with schools? Because before there was quite a close interaction.
Yep. So there's a few points to cover there. So first, in terms of the statistics for drink versus drug driving, I don't have the exact breakdown, but I'll find it. But if you're asking my general opinion, we regularly catching drug drivers. But what I would say is you need to compare that to, if you go back to the 5-year figures, they'll be very low, but it's because we've got new testing equipment in that time. So that's, whereas there may have been some previously, now we've got roadside swabs to detect drug driving. We didn't have that in probably by the 5-year of those. It would have come in by then. So we will see an increase, but that's because of detection. We've been given a better ability to detect that offences. So for that, as I said, my point was still 27 detections. That's still, that's a lot of people. It's yes, the numbers have gone down, but we don't want to see any. We want people not to be taking that risk, and we'll continue our work to detect. In terms of if you asked about campaigns, yes, we had campaigns over Christmas, as we always do, which is based on festive drink drive. Our road policing colleagues have an annual plan of campaigns that they will be running, both educational and enforcement, throughout the 12-month period. They cover various sides of road policing, whether it be speeding, seatbelts, general road conditions, motorbike safety, etc. So they have that planned year in advance, what campaigns when, and they will we assist them with that.
And that's usually presented to the council.
And I say that it's about, they normally start with a educational phase and then move into enforcement phase during the period.
And I suppose my other question would be, if someone is stopped and found to be under the influence, whether that be drugs or drink, do they get taken to Dingwall Police Station or Inverness?
Inverness. They go to Burner Road. Yeah, they don't go to Dingwall at all. I think I covered all for this.
That's all those ones. I have a separate one.
Yep.
And it's mainly to do with CCTV cameras.
Okay.
And I know that that's dealt with at Burnet Road, and it's taken a little while to find out because some communities have asked about the CCTV when there's been vandalism caused.
Okay.
Where maybe councils put in the CCTV equipment, and it's about the monitoring and being able to check the video or the disc to see if you can pick up on who may be using the facility or causing the damage right about that time. But you need a police number, an incident number to do that.
Okay.
And How is that? Because what I was told by Highland Council was that I asked what the process was to do that. If it's the community that can call up and report the damage, if it's the council that reports the damage, and they said to me that once they have an incident number, it's not guaranteed that that will be looked at. It's up to the police officer in charge to decide the importance of that. And I just wanted to clarify that, because if a crime's been caused, even though it might not be high priority,
Yep.
it is for the community. And I just
Absolutely.
wondered
So,
how does that work at Burnham Road?
right, so first of all, are we talking about council-owned CCTV or police
Yes.
controlled?
It's council owned, most of it, yes.
So if it's council-owned, is it at Burnham Road?
Yes, we said I've got
Yeah, so-
information, they're all at Burnham Road.
Right.
And they get, it's on a 30-day loop, is it? They're trying to get them to do
Probably sound right, yeah, for retaining. So for me, for all vandalisms, CCTV is all standard line of inquiry. So it should be getting checked for all vandalisms reported to us. If it's not, I've been treated of any incidents where they've been told it's not been checked. So if there is CCTV in the area, I would expect that to be reviewed. In terms of the council, not that, assume the council have access to their own CCTV. If it's not reported to us, they don't need a police number to check their own CCTV. I would suggest, if they have access to it. But I don't get why they wouldn't report it to us if there's been a vandalism, because we need to know about what's not. Vandalism, you quite right, touched. Vandalism is a concern to communities, and we've recently developed a plan to deal with vandalism across the whole North Highland Command area. So that's just gone out to officers recently to enhance how we're dealing with vandalisms and the scrutiny that goes into them that type of incidents. So they are a priority to us because they do have an effect on communities.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and the vandalism of toilets is a particularly difficult one, both here and in Muirabord.
Yeah.
And we keep fixing them when they get damaged, but that's not sustainable in the long run, you know.
Well, unfortunately, public toilets throughout the area
Yeah,
are regularly vandalised. And unfortunately, it does tend to get worse in the summer when brighter nights, people out and more people in the area. But in terms of CCTV, I'd expect if there's CCTV there, I'd expect that to be reviewed.
Thank you.
Do you think there's anything with the, the vandalism, toilets and things like that, the culture that goes through the youth and everything, that it's a big challenge and they can TikTok each other to who's done
So,
the biggest or best job, or whichever way you might.
yeah, I've got nothing to say that's happening, but I wouldn't put it past kids to try and outdo each other. But that's assuming they're responsible for all the damage, and I'm not convinced they are. And some of the incidents, not so much here, but particularly in other areas, I'm not so convinced it's always youths. But part of our vandalism action plan is to look at school liaison talks in terms of damage to the appropriate school years in the schools to try and reduce the incidents. So we are looking to engage with the younger ones about it.
I don't want to put everything just down onto the
No.
onto the kids, but
No, but it's a site to be looked at. It's definitely a site to be looked at.
So some damage that's happened within schools.
Yes.
It is school.
Yes,
But,
schools are regularly mostly the victim of vandalism. So we are very trying to there's an action out for school liaison officers to go and speak to certain new groups.
thank you.
finally, can I just ask about the staffing levels? Are you up to par with staffing levels? Is there a specific allocation to our ward of policing numbers?
So policing numbers for they're not so much to your ward because it's my area is Western Ross, so it'd be the Black Isle. We cover the Black Isle area and your area, and also then I've got a team who are based in the west, the Liverpool section. So at the moment, I'll go through some. The Liverpool section is a sergeant and 6 constables, and that's fully staffed. And I don't anticipate any change to that anytime soon with new people in, and I can't see people looking to. In terms of officers based in Dingwall, is the master says 5 sergeants and 23 constables. And at the moment we are currently sitting with 1 vacancy which is advertised internally. So we are one below our full allocation of officers.
Well, that's interesting because when the claim is that, you know, there's nothing, never see any police about. I would be quite interested in having the community councils informed of that, just that we are up. And it's 5 and 23 is more than I thought you were going to say. So from, you know, a communication point of view, it might be quite useful for the community councils to know that.
How many's on shift at one time? That would be
So
something for them.
Well, there'll be in general, there's a sergeant and either 4 or 5 on G. Then you also have to take into that annual leave,
Yeah.
courses, etc. So there can be obstruction, but we work hand in hand with Almas so if our numbers reduce, but they're on a particular shift, but they've got an extra resource, they will assist and vice versa. So we try and maintain the resource levels consistent across the Almas team in all areas. It's how we work together with the resource levels.
What sort of area, when you're saying that your 5 sergeants, your 23 constables based in Dingwall, yeah?
Yeah.
Is that just for Dingwall or where do you go to?
Dingwall and Seaforth area.
Yeah.
And the Black Isle area. So Black Isle, Muirboard, out to about Garve. Just past Garve is the cut-off line where the Olipool section would then take over.
So the Olipool section would have to go to Strathpepper?
No, beyond. It's not on Dingwall goes to Strathpepper.
All right, that's if we're going for
No, Dingwall goes to Strathpepper. And it's.
Where's it kind of finish?
Yeah.
Over is it west of the Pecos when you get to the Garve sort?
Yes, you're west. You're into the kind of more remote areas.
And then the Dingwall carry on.
But Dingwall and the Olipool section work together as well. And so it's all under my inspector-led area. So we work together. So our staff. And so in total we have 6 sergeants, 29 constables across my area.
Thanks for that. And thanks for taking the time to come along and talk to us this morning. Members were asked to note the report. Will we agree that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Have a nice day.
Members, with your approval, will move agenda item 8 up to the next item on the agenda because of officer availability. And I believe Jake Mitchell is with us.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I am. Good morning, members.
Okay.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear. So it's housing revenue account garage rents 2023-24. I note that we put them up by 1% this time last year. You've modelled 3%, 5% and 7%. I've been noticing across the other area committees that there have been some at 3 and some at 7. Do you want to present the report, Jake?
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for letting me move up the agenda this morning. So yeah, this is our rent setting report for next year. So I'll just briefly take members through it and talk a bit around our recommendation. So page 2 of your report just provides a breakdown in terms of numbers and potential revenue, occupancy levels, and then the 3 tables at 6.3 in your report provide an illustration of what a 3, 5 or 7% increase would look like. Now, I'm very aware that members have previously raised concerns about the condition of some of our garage stock and the high number of voids. And whilst there has been some work done in this respect, I think you're aware of demolitions in Millbank Road, Chestnut Road. This is clearly something that needs a continued focus. Further development on the action plan that I believe was shared with members last year. So my intention would be to come toward business to have discussions about these sites and agree what our approach should be on a site-by-site basis. I think one of the biggest challenges for us in terms of reducing our void numbers is having a product that we can offer which is in good condition and attractive to a potential tenant or an existing tenant. And the key to achieving that is investment. I don't need to explain to members the significant financial pressures facing the HRA going forward, but I think we can safely assume there will not be a lot of additional money for garage investment other than what's generated by a rent increase. So what I'm trying to say is if we reduce the potential revenue in applying a rent increase, it will undoubtedly increase the challenge we face when we're trying to improve our stock, increase occupancy, and just get where we want to be in terms of our garage stock. And as I've said, the tables there at 6.3 show the different rent increases and the impact that would have. Our recommendation is 7%, and in terms of monthly increase, that would be around about £3 per month for tenants and £3.60 for non-tenants. Thank you, members. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, members. What do we think?
I could kick really up off at this after what we went through last week, so I'm going to keep my mouth shut and what everybody else agrees with. I don't know what from what side anybody wants any different rents on anything. My thing would be that it's got to be the minimum of what you're going that your budget's going to stay the same, if you know what I mean. Yeah, I wouldn't like to see you put an increase in that's going to give you less money. I would definitely like to see it that we're keeping our nose above water at the very minimum.
I know what John's talking about because we were both at the Housing and Property Committee meeting last week, and at that meeting the committee went for a 4% increase in rent, even though it was a £780,000 cut in the maintenance budget for the coming year. And to be honest, the rents, as you mentioned, we've been trying to find out exactly how many garages we have, what condition they're in for a number of years now. And you're just new in post, and thank you for your report. And I know you've had to go around all the other areas as well, and they've all come forward with different recommendations based on, I think, the condition of the garages as well. We've had a wee conversation about the condition of some of the garages in our ward, and there hasn't really been much investment in them over the years. I'd be interested to know how much budget already in the HRA has been set aside for improvement to garages, and how that is going to change much by any increase that we are making or recommending today. It says that the impact, you've given us the 3, and it doesn't look much, but given the passionate plea by the administration at last week's meeting, I think I'd be looking for the lower end. I wouldn't be looking to increase it by 7%. It doesn't state how many are, I couldn't see. Oh yes, it does, yes. The difference between a tenant and someone that's renting the garage. And my concern is a lot of the garages aren't being used for garaging, for storing the cars, because cars won't fit into the garages. So we have to decide as a council, are they garages or are they lockups that are being used by people for storage? And if that's the case, should we be looking at this differently? You know, if the garages don't fit cars in many instances and they're just being used for storage, what is the strategy of the council moving forward? And it's not going to be sorted today. And I think you mentioned you're going to come forward with the state of the garages, what they're being used for, and as we move through the next financial year. And I would like to see that, because most are using them for storage. And if that's the case, should it be rented differently as well, if it's not a garage space? So for me, I think it would either be 3 or 5%, but not 7.
Okay. I there's strong feelings about this, but given that the rents went up by 4%, you say, I would be inclined to try and align it to that and put them up by 4 as a model, but let's say I think I would go for 5.
And you're confirming that this funding would definitely be ring-fenced for improving the garages within our ward?
The income, yeah, the income from the increase.
And it wouldn't take away any funding that's already in place for garages?
No.
Okay, decision time. I'll propose 5.
After last week, I'm stuck totally and utterly pickled because I can see all sides of the thing. I'll second 5%.
You quite comfortable with that, I think? Okay, that's unanimous then, Jake. 5% it is. Very much look forward to you coming to our ward business meeting to discuss our garages, and it would be good to do a tour of the sites, have a look, and throughout our ward. So thanks for your report this morning, and for coming along. We are asked to set the rate. We've set it at 5%, so the recommendations are overcome.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Cheers. Okay, we now move to the Area Community Regeneration Fund, and Fiona is with us this morning. Fiona, there you go. I'll just pass over to you then, Fiona.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. Yes, as you're aware, members, the Community Regeneration Fund is an umbrella term that we use to cover a number of funding streams that councillors can make decisions on, mainly the Highland Coastal Communities Fund and the Place-Based Investment Programme. So in Dingwall and Seaforth, you currently have allocations available under coastal communities of £2,045 and under the Place-Based Investment Programme of £119,280. So total funds available this morning would be £121,325. So I've brought 2 applications to you today, members, for consideration. One is the Maryborough Amenities Company for their community hall upgrade, and they're requesting £14,057. And the other is the Peffery Way Association to complete the Peffery Way with the Mill Street end section in Dingwall, and the request there is £29,500. So that means in total projects are requesting just over £43,500. So members would have available funding to approve both if they wish. For your information, I've undertaken a technical assessment on both the projects, and I can confirm they're both eligible. And we've also provided a RAG summary against some key criteria just for your information. But just note that that's an assessment that we undertake on information that's been provided to us through the application process. So if something has been flagged amber, because I don't think you have any reds in there today, but if there's any ambers, it's really just to highlight that there's perhaps some outstanding requirements the project would have to meet, or that perhaps just brief information was given in the application form. So it's not a comment on the value of the project or any eligibility concerns. And where something has been given an amber rating, we would generally seek to address that with conditions that we would attach to any funding approval, again, if members wish to approve the projects. So in respect of the two projects in front of you today, I've got no specific issues I would want to raise with either of them. Just provide a very brief update with regards to the Peffery Way Association application. Members will note that that's been given an amber for project robustness, and that's to reflect the fact that a path order is required from the Scottish Government in order to allow that project to start and any works to take place. So the applicant has updated me last week that they have been told that this path order has been approved and they expect it to be formally confirmed in the next fortnight. But at this stage, we would still look to get that formally evidenced before we would release the grant. But that's just a brief update. As I say, no other real issues I'd want to draw members' attention to this morning. So I would hand back to yourself now, Chair, but I'm happy to answer any questions that councillors have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's take them individually then.
Can I just ask, what was the amount requested for the again?
Uh,
It's 14.
14, so what was it? For me,
Sorry, it's
Fiona?
14,057.
It's 28,057 on the application that we have.
Yes, so again, I'm not sure if I've glossed over that slightly at the start. I should explain that under the Community Regeneration Funding umbrella, we have another fund which is community-led local development money. It doesn't sit with councillors, it sits with the local action group. And if members remember the Highland Leader programme, which was an EU fund, this is essentially a Scottish Government pilot programme to replace that leader funding. So because we are administering all these funds, we took the Maryborough Amenities Company application to our local action group to request half the funding from there for that project. We were restricted what projects we could put forward to that group by the timescale for that funding, which has to be spent by March this year. And in the case of Maryborough, because the project's ready to start, they would be able to deliver some of the work straight away. So that means that they've secured 14,000 of match funding from that community-led local development fund, which has reduced the ask to members today. So I hope that kind of explains it, but I'm again happy to provide any more information on that if you'd like.
No, I think we did talk about this before.
I just wanted to double check.
Yeah.
When it is still on the app.
So, Maryborough Amenities Company, quite happy for that to go through.
Can I just ask one question? We've got the 121,000 and the two applications come to about 43,000, yeah? Does that get topped up again next year or will there be more money coming back into that fund for us?
Yes, that's right. So both the coastal communities and the place-based programme are annual allocations that come to Highland Council from the Scottish Government, and then we take that annual allocation to the Economy and Infrastructure Committee for it to be devolved out to area committees. So any balance that remains today, if you wish to approve these projects, remains within Dingwall and Seaforth and gets rolled forward to the next round. And the current expectation, we haven't received the allocations for this year yet, but we hope to get them soon, and we would therefore be aiming to go to the Economy and Infrastructure Committee in May to agree the allocations for this year, which would provide to Dingwall and Seaforth both these funding allocations for this year, which would then be added to any balance remaining from this current money.
Thank you, Fiona. Thank you. I'm cool with the Maryborough, if that's the only one we're dealing with at the moment.
Okay, that's all three of us in favour of the Maryborough one, Fiona, and the Peffery Way. And this is all work to be done within our ward, Dingwall and Seaforth area, yeah.
Yes, it's at the Mill Street end.
Just to try to tidy it up.
The crack that I get on the street and things like that from people from all over think it's a fantastic thing, the Peffery Ray, and if we can help tidy it up at the Dingwall end and finishing it off, I'd absolutely support that. You know, it's great to see that members of the public, okay, well, that it's Strathpeffer, but it's coming into Strathpeffer, into Dingwall, that they're taking a bit of pride in the communities, I would absolutely go for giving this grant without, and I'd propose that we give the grant.
Okay, yep, of course. Yeah, well, that was easy, Fiona. Thumbs up to both.
Can I ask Fiona a question?
Sure.
After? Fiona, can I ask you a question on, see the Clean and Green for Muirboard? It was a joint project with Muirboard and with Maidborough, and we had something similar in Dingwall, and Conan, they did their own thing. We don't have the funding for Clean and Green, but part of the project was providing tools and vans. Maidborough have now bought the woods in Maidborough Woods, and they've set up a company which will come under the MAC to take forward doing work there. How does it work? Can they still use the Clean and Green equipment to do that through the Muirboard Hall and Facilities Company? How does that? Can you tell me how that works? So that was the project from last year that finished. So how should I have a conversation offline with you about that?
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to. I'm afraid I'm not aware of what the Clean and Green money was, or if that was a project that had come through our funding. Councillor, but
Yeah, it was, I think it was government funding for the last year. I think it was related to COVID. And we allocated monies across the board at this time last year. And it's a real pity that it's not coming back, because it's been one of the more worthwhile projects we've had. But if Angela can maybe have that discussion with you online and offline, that'd be great.
yes, more than happy to do that.
And with Di. Yeah. Okay, thanks very much, Fiona.
Yep.
Just to tidy it up, we're asked to consider all applications and agree which should have received funding, and we've done that. Okay. Do we have? Okay. And there's a pausing here because the next item on the agenda is the area roads capital programme, but there is no sign of Mr. Moncrief.
That's the another meeting.
Apparently, Guy tells me he's on holiday.
So that means it would be held.
Well,
Laura hasn't been briefed on this, so.
well, I find it disappointing that we have a paper in front of us that can't be spoken to.
It's far too much of this. You know, if we're giving up our time to come to these, we should have something in front of us.
Should have somebody here. On the other hand, if we don't take some decisions, no work can start.
I've got a question I wondered that I wanted to ask Guy and Ian Moncrief. And I suppose it's about the convicts one paper later on and about this roads one. I mean, we've had a lot of complaints about the state of the roads in 2020, which takes you to the caravan site.
Yeah.
And we get income every year from the caravan site that goes into the common food
Yes.
fund. Can some of that be used for doing the roads and in the potholes?
It could, at members' discretion, that could be considered by yourselves.
So I thought I would ask when Ian Moncrief was here to see if that was what work we could take, because as you can see from the report, we're not getting much.
No, and that was a question I wanted to ask you, because some of this stuff was on last year's plan. So I was wondering what was going on there. Our allocation seems particularly poor.
And I think from our experience, especially at community councils, they're not seeing a lot for their bucks.
No.
And they are getting, we go back and tell them, well, this road's going to be done, and then it's for different reasons. It's not done. And I feel that the report gave us lots of Robertson allocation.
Yeah.
I didn't really hone in on what they
No, I agree with you. If it can be disaggregated to Ross and Cromarty area, then it can be disaggregated to ward basis. I don't see any reason why that doesn't happen at all. But in terms of today, can we, Diane, I mean, can we remit this to the ward business meeting for a very early meeting with?
It can, but it's been to the ward business meeting, so the decision has to be taken at committee. You could take a decision today, or you could defer.
As it says that Dingwall and Seaforth have a total of 8% of the road line of the former Ross and Cromarty. But however, our roads, especially town centres, are well used.
Yeah.
And perhaps it should be more on the road traffic this way, rather than just the length of the roads. So 84,500 in the costing to this.
Well, I would imagine if you're going to repair that Ross County road, it'd probably take all of that.
The Ross County Road will also have a contribution from the Camping and Caravanning Club, but I'm not sure quite how much. Ian's getting it costed.
I want to ask that question, is that we could use some of the common good fund, since they actually pay into the common good fund and it affects their business in that.
Yeah.
You know, that the caravans sort of,
Yeah.
it's a bad state.
Ian Moncrief is organising an estimate from our last talks. So that should come to the business meeting on the 6th of February. Remember,
That's not too long.
it's not too long.
So how do we deal with this one? Do we have to remit this to the next area committee?
I think that would take too long.
That would take
because
too long.
If we don't, I think if we don't agree, they can't put it in the programme of works to be done, so that it is. I think
That's correct.
Okay, well, for what it's worth, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 projects here. See, I think McDonald Road was on last year's. I think the Ross and Cromarty, the Jubilee Park Road was on it as well.
Yes.
I think we were told that that would be done. It doesn't appear at all on this.
And we were also told that Community Day would have been done
That's
last
right.
year,
That's right.
and we told people that was going to
That's
happen.
right.
And
Although I can understand why it wasn't with all that was going on outside down at Mill Street. But yeah, I wanted to ask about that as well.
I think some of the McDonald Road stuff has been.
Oh, and some of it was done.
And I think, because I was speaking to Laura about it, I think they've got to go back and possibly just paint the lines and everything on it this year from.
Surface dressing.
Okay, well, I think we should go back to Rico in charge of the area and express our disappointment that a paper piles in front of us without any officer to speak to it.
It's not the first time.
It's not the first time. And I suppose then, do we want to approve these so they can get started?
Yes. I would agree to approve them. And there's so many roads that are bad.
Oh, it's just, and after the snow.
The high street after the snow is terrible. The pedestrian area as well.
Yeah. So what is on the 6th, Di?
It's
That's next Monday.
is it next Monday? No, you're actually the 20th, I think. But we can arrange.
No, there's nothing next week Monday.
No, it's the Black Isle next Monday.
Right.
But we can arrange a special meeting as soon as Ian's back from leave.
Okay, it's a bit disappointing that that's.
Are we going to approve these ones? Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a question, yeah.
I'm quite happy to if Muir Road's getting something, that might at long last get a wee clap in the back if we go in for Muir Road.
Well, actually, that's below the line, so it depends on if we can get that done, Glenville and Riverbank Road. It's only the top 4 looking, is it?
Yes,
Okay, somebody here that could tell us, because that's probably in colour or something.
yeah.
Yeah,
Above the red line is what they've costed and they believe they can do with the funds and their resources. Below the red line is should there be any kind of underspend or a reason for a place above not being able to be done, they would move on to reserves below.
And the sale and place one, we spoke to housing because the original plan we saw only had up to where the bowling green was, and we hadn't done the side roads. But housing have come back and agreed that they want the side roads done, so that whole sale and place they will get done.
okay.
So what you're saying is the top four is the only ones that we can afford for the whole of this year.
That's
Oh
why,
my God.
that's why we needed to speak to an officer.
Yeah.
However, we can't make progress on this until we have an officer, so we just approved those and call for an early meeting with Mr. McCreep when he's back.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item 6, discretionary ward budget applications. You have it in front of you. Seems that that's just for homologation, really.
Just the noting.
Yeah, just for noting. Okay, happy to note that, member? Right, thank you. Dingwall Common Good Fund. Aye.
So, got the report in front of you, members, and it comprises a note of the annual report from 21 to 22, a note and scrutinise the position of Dingwall Common Good Fund as shown in quarter 22-23 quarter state monitoring statement, and also to approve the budget. So on appendix page 36, you'll see the statement of accounts presented there. And then if you turn the page to page 37, you'll see the quarterly monitoring report that closed in March 2022, which just rounds off the year because you didn't have that in front of you throughout the year. So that just marries in with the close of the accounts on page 36. Then moving on to page 38, that is the monitoring statement for quarter up to December 2022. So that was the activity in the budget, which there hasn't been any major activity there. And then across the page, page 39 is the draft budget for the coming year, which is similar to the draft budget the year before. It leaves a forecast of end of year reserves at £256,953 if everything comes in on budget. If there's any underspends, it would be more in the reserves. If there are any significant projects, those will be brought back to members to consider them individually. Happy to take any questions.
So these community grants and donations, is that the £2,000 for the Christmas lunches?
Yes, yes, or any community grants that come forward. The special project grants mainly link into community groups who, or yourselves, if you want to improve any of the common good assets. So it's more community approach, but it's to assist our own assets within the common good.
Okay. And how much of this are we entitled to spend in a year? There is a cap, isn't there?
Well, when you take things back to committee, if it's usually capital funding that goes back. If it's significant, then it's up to you members. But we generally, so we're making a saving into our reserves of 12,064 this year, this coming year. As I say, if something was underspent, there would be more going in. So it's not recommended that we spend every penny we earn. every year. We're always putting into reserves for our major assets to protect them. Yeah, and to protect their assets and their income to the common good.
Can I just ask so I understand it? For your income, your top line is rents. What does that entail? I've no idea. You know, when you say your income.
Our income is from rents. So we get income from the Camping and Caravanning Club.
All right, okay.
For the Jubilee Caravan site, and we also get income from Highland for Dingwall Town Hall.
Okay, right. I didn't understand what rents would come. That's fine.
So that's our income, which keeps the common good operating.
Okay, any other questions, comments?
How are we getting on with the town hall?
Town hall property seem to say it's progressing well. There's lots of activity around there, and hopefully they'll report back to a future business meeting as well, just to give you more details. But at the moment, it all seems to be progressing well. I haven't been advised of any delays, but there's a lot of scaffolding up, lots of activity, and the hall is still open to the public.
Yeah, I've seen it last week.
Yeah.
And how are we with the funding? There's a shortfall.
If there's a shortfall, the council's property team have got funding at earmarked from capital.
It's not coming out.
No, the common good approved what they've approved, and that's you can see that in the accounts. But we're still haven't used up all the funding that we got from the investment programme and the town centre programme. So.
Okay, member, for us to note that. Yep. And agenda item 8, we've overtaken. Number 9, the minutes of the last area committee held on the 14th of November. Note them. Quite happy with them.
Right.
Yep. Okay, well, just an hour.